everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. We are joined today once again by Benoit LaPierre in Montreal, Quebec.
In Toronto now,
Toronto.
Canada. I move in Toronto.
Geez, all the Montreal people are moving to Toronto lately, it
Yes.
seems. Huh. Well, it is a very nice city. I've been there a couple times now. I see
It's very nice, and it's a very big, huge pro show also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ron Hachey puts on an excellent show up there. Him and his crew.
He's a great president. Since the split of the IFBB Elite, the CPA does amazing. There's 92 shows in NPA.
Wow.
No.
That's a lot of shows. So the first time I had Benoit on, everybody, I was kicking myself right after because Benoit is a wealth of information and expertise on performance-enhancing drugs, and I barely touched on that topic at all in my first interview I did with them. And people were immediately messaging saying, why didn't you ask him this and that? So here we are again a few months later.
Amazing.
Got some good questions.
Hope it will be a regular. I'm open for a regular. I'm open for flexible. I'm not better than anyone else, but I usually handle very complex question, polishing knowledge that, because sometimes when people are competing for 5, 6, 7 years, it's only like 1 or 2% of quality that will make them win.
Right.
And sometimes you need someone that's aware of that, micro detail. Because eventually the complexity gets so huge that you have to polish detail, and that makes astonishing athletes.
So before I get into the questions, a lot of people do know your background. For those who don't, how did you get all your information and expertise on performance-enhancing drugs?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I've been in the industry for about 12 years.
Yeah.
And I think it was almost like self-knowledge. But the thing is, today I kind of reach a wisdom where I have family and baby and wife and I'm more calm. But I literally just spoke about enhancement and cycle and steroids and growth hormone for about maybe 10 years straight for 40, 50, 60 hours a week, all the time texting, sharing knowledge, data. It was an obsession of mine. I don't know why. There was maybe because of the endocrinology, the complex, the fact that steroids was playing on emotion and mood and libido. So to me, it seems like an endless, I still learn today. So it's a never ending game, but I have a PhD in therapeutic approach from overseas, but when it comes to hormones, I'm independently made, obviously. Yeah,
I don't think there's any university degree anywhere that specializes in this type of thing.
No. Especially when you go in the big guy zone, like 250 plus on stage, even the rational science will not really work it up that much.
Right.
So you have to be flexible. I think if you have an asset of functional neurology, integrative health, functional medicine, and understand how hormones work, then you can span decent knowledge and periodization.
Okay, so I've compiled a bunch of questions that are very, very often asked, frequently asked questions. I'm going to get right into the first one. How long, Benoit, do you think someone should train naturally before they look into enhancing themselves with steroids and other drugs?
That's a good question. I'll say 21, 22, 23 years old. Start optimally. You have to do sport your entire life: jumping, rolling, climbing, athleticism at different level, dancing, singing. You have to be. You don't have to be only a bodybuilder. You have to be a complete athlete. Even as a child, as a teenager, toddler, baby. Always using your body as a tool of self-esteem and body awareness. Yeah. And natural is good, but natural for a very long time is very harsh on joint and the body and the structure. Of course, if you're doing athleticism or ballet or contemporary dance, it's still harsh on joint, but nothing like bodybuilding. So eventually, natural bodybuilder will have no choice to at least protect joint and ligament. But I'll say if you plan, let's say like Antoine Vaillant, or I want to be a professional, and my humble humility, I have the body answer to it.
Yeah.
I'll say 4 or 5 years naturally to then flip. It's a good range, but you have to start young and you have to start different type of sport, like biking, snowboarding, skateboarding, because it's all sensory information. If we look at Phil Heath, he was playing basketball before doing bodybuilding. Yeah. So the advantage of natural is you're actually building actin and myosin in fiber. Yeah. It adds up in number, and once you go on steroids, boom, hyperplasia of the actual fibers. You have a better answer. So if you have someone that trained natural for 15 years and then do a cycle, who knows, you could win Mr. Canada. So, but at the same time, it's gambling a lot. So I'll say 4 or 5 years is a good range. And even then, once you start playing with steroids, you need to go back to a normal homeostasis, normal natural level of, functional libido, cognition, etc. You cannot be on all the time. You can be on GH for a long time. Yeah. If you really don't care about health that much, you could be on insulin for a long time at low dose, or at least every other days in terms of precautionary measure. But you cannot be on year basis. No.
Well, you can. So, it's probably just not a great idea. But
it's not a great idea. No.
I know plenty of people who are always on, always. They blast and they cruise, and they'll blast on 2 to 3 grams, and then they cruise on 500 or 600 milligrams of test a week, plus the GH and the insulin.
This is all fun, but like me, I'm 43, 49, 44 almost.
Yeah.
Eventually, if I had cruised so much, I would need like 400 or 500 milligram tests just to have substantial libido function, and that be harsh on blood pressure for someone that blasts and cruise for over 10 years. So blast and cruise is a good idea on the short term, but on long term is terrible. Unless you're someone that's in very good wealth and good finance and you know what? I can handle having expense to take care of my health once my chaos comes to me, then okay. But if you're poor, be careful with blast and cruise.
Okay. So in that same vein, I hear guys doing their first cycle and it's like a gram of test, a gram of tren. It's these crazy first cycles. If someone came to you and they've been training naturally for 5 or 6 years, they ask you, Benoit, what's a good first cycle? I mean, what would you theoretically recommend in terms of a drugs and dosage for someone who just wants to start using and doesn't want to go crazy?
Yeah, but first you have to ask, what's the goal first? Is it gaining mass? Is it male physique? Is it classic physique? Is it bodybuilding? If it's bodybuilding in middleweight, if it's bodybuilding at super heavyweight. So the goal, the ambition, and the rationale of it will make sense. And the height of the guy and actually his waist. If the guy is 5'5" and he has 30-inch waist, he almost have no choice to be a bodybuilder, and he almost need like 28, 29-inch legs. Yeah. So you're looking at 205. So you have to kind of work it up. But I would say, for me, might sound extreme, but 1 gram of tests seems a lot, but it's not lower or higher. It's kind of like that forever. So. And like 8 weeks on, 3-4 weeks off, 8 weeks on, 3 weeks, 4 weeks off, that kind of on off halfway. You're not fully out of it, but at the same time, there's this natural homeostasis that allow the body to heal, to absorb food better, and actually kind of break plateau. I don't think someone that goes very hard, the gym performance output will be there. Eventually, the gym will kind of, I feel like I'm losing strength. It's almost like a counter negative.
Yeah.
So then you'll know you're in the too much range, because it's always about nailing the cycle that brings an intensity that's rational. Look like, you have to scream and intimidate people and feel overly confident, but enough alpha male range that's substantial and current and social factor, and you have gym intensity.
So you would have this person, you would advise them testosterone only. You wouldn't have them doing.
I would testosterone, anabolic, and one oral, no estrogen.
Okay.
Usually first cycle, people don't really aromatize. I will never advise a first cycle with someone that's higher than 20% body fat. I will say lose 30 pounds of water, go on steroid, try to gain that 30 pounds back in muscle or muscle quality.
Yeah.
I will not start a heavy bloat guy on a first cycle ever. Never. Because it's almost like terrible. It's terrible. It's not a good idea.
From a point of view of their health or the results or both?
The health, the blood pressure, the water retention. As the guy lose 30 pounds. And the thing is not only that, it's the guy need enough will, stamina, discipline, self-body awareness to say, I'm able to lose 30 pounds naturally, now I deserve to do a cycle. Yeah. When you have someone that's kind of fat, that means he's a bit sloppy, I'm not judging, but you kind of want to be on the first cycle steroids with someone that's very sharp and very present and very mature and responsible with his money, with his income, with his own life. You don't want to be a welfare guy for your first cycle. You know what I mean?
I do.
So you kind of need an organized life before jumping into them.
You wouldn't want a very heavy person starting steroids. Would you want to see someone who's got almost no muscle, looks like they've never touched a weight? Would you want to see someone like that using steroids? Because you can argue that both ways. Someone like that, maybe they really need it, or maybe they should be patient.
I will start with education, nutritional education first, because often people that are very skinny, they kind of undereat, or they undereat quality food. They think they need a lot of shit to gain weight. Often it's hyperthyroid. I'm not giving a diagnostic, but anyhow, educational nutrition. I could put on GHRP6 because that makes you eat. MK677 makes you eat and then you can kind of work it up. But if someone is skinny doing steroids, yes, but he will need a coach and expertise and someone that kind of hold his hand or look at him for at least a year.
So going back to, you just talked about using 2 different peptides to increase appetite. I don't know where you stand on marijuana use. It's becoming slowly legal all over the U.S., isn't it? It's legal fully in Canada now, right? For recreational use?
I don't know every province is a bit different. It's a bit chaos, but I think you're allowed, but you can only smoke in your house if the neighbors allow you. I don't know. There's kind of a very strange.
Excuse me, I live next door. Can I smoke?
You cannot smoke near a school or a park, or I don't know. It's legal, but it's a bit.
I'm saying it's probably for most people, marijuana is easier to get and cheaper than these peptides, GHRP6 and everything. So I've talked to people. I'm saying I'm not recommending narcotics, but they do enhance appetite. And a lot of these ectomorphic people, they just have no appetite. They don't eat enough. They can't get enough food.
I'm more of a conservative person, so I will say CBD would be a good conjunction compared to THC because of the psychoactive. Yeah. I think there's a way to replenish endocannabinoid receptor in brain, kind of feel down and relax and stuff. CBD doesn't make you hungry for food. It's more like soothing for the nervous system, endocrine, digestion, etc. But I'm not a fan of psychoactive drugs with steroids. It's almost like gambling neurotransmitter reaction. And if someone is attracted to steroids, maybe 1 out of 20 person, they could have an addictive personality. So you don't want to overlap this and that. I personally find that guy that takes steroids and THC at the same time, they kind of have a very rugged, sharp, kind of aggressive behavior. They're not that cool unless they're high, maybe. But I find the mood a bit.
So kind of
bitter. Yeah, bitter. Yeah.
You think 1 out of 20? I'm gonna say it's like 10 out of 20. I believe
Yeah,
it's
well,
at
you know,
50%.
I'm a positive guy. I'm a
Yeah,
positive
well,
guy.
this is from my own personal observation.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, another question that's I've never gotten a really straight answer from someone that really knew. Do you need to increase doses of steroids over time to see the same results? Does your body get attenuated? Does it get accustomed to the drugs? And you do need to increase doses over time.
Yes, that's a good question. I prefer work with multi-pharmacology. I know some guru are kind of against that, but for me, a little bit of SLIN, GH, peptides, SARS, but not often, anabolic, androgenic, proviron, aromacin, working with 10, 12, 15 compounds in low dose, actually, because you have 1GF, PEG-MGF, GH, you'll never know what exactly will be the point that answer in terms of androgen receptor or body muscle building process.
Yeah.
But because you fill up all the blank and all the boxes, I think it's a best asset. It's possible that you need more drugs if eventually your contest stage goes higher. So someone that will go light heavy at 198 will not eat the same at 224 in the top end of the heavyweight category. So holding 224, you can with 900, but you need an extreme grade genetics, very spoiled genetics. Yeah. So usually 0.3, 1.3, 1.4 should hold 224. And with the body composition and the water retention, then you can polish and lower it from 3-4 weeks out and figure it out. You know, what's the ratio? Was it okay? You look at weight scale, you look at picture, you look at body comparison, you know, all factor counts. But a picture doesn't lie. And in person, even better.
So, but let me give you like a real specific example. Like, say I'm 225 pounds.
Yes.
And I've been using steroids for 20 years. It takes me, it takes about 600 or 800 grams of steroids to maintain a lean 225. Whereas, you know, maybe years ago it would have taken half of that. Does someone like me, does my body get used to the steroids and it wouldn't respond? It wouldn't be able to hold the same amount of mass on what I used 20 years ago?
Let's say that was the case now.
Yeah.
I will be the coach. I will sit down and we will look at financial and try to find a way that you can afford growth hormones, because when you've been on steroids for 20 years, steroids doesn't do more. You need growth hormone. You have no choice. So are you going to work quality generic? Are you going to compound it with MK or peptide? And then we have to work it up. Can you find quality Newspin, Norditropin, Genotropin, etc. Newspin? I think someone that been on steroids for 20 years could get good results from 3 units, 3-4 times a week before bed. Yeah. If you really work hard on cardio, periodization, nutrition, non-inflammation, different color in food intake, diversity of fat, spice, and work the entire holistic system. But it needs GH.
I had a whole bunch of questions about GH, so we might as well get into those now.
Yes.
You just mentioned, I didn't have this as a question, but you mentioned taking it before bed. I know a lot of people, they take it first thing in the morning because you're supposed to be on an empty stomach with no carbs in your system, and then you're supposed to wait 30 minutes before you eat after your injection. Is that also a viable way to use it?
It's actually very viable, but in terms of a pragmatic sense, you will give 3 units morning to every beginner. For about 3-4 months, they're going to have a hard time training. They're just going to yawn and fall asleep here and there. And unless they have very, very high cortisol, then it's different. But usually if you take a healthy behavior from the general public and you put them on GH, you just snap out, knock out.
Really?
So,
I never heard that.
Yes.
It makes you sleepy?
It makes you sleepy
I've never heard that before. So my first question that I actually did have was, you know, in 2019, where bodybuilding, especially in bodybuilding, let's forget about the other divisions right now, is GH a necessity? Could we have the level of physiques that you are expected to have to do well at the national level and at the pro level without GH, or is it a necessity now?
I seriously think it's a necessity. Yeah. At least for the top 3 national in the super heavy. Yeah. In the other category, you know, God bless, maybe, you know. Some I've seen guys making top 5 with about $500 budget. Very poor guy, but very smart, very good gene and everything, but it never really truly make it to like bang, right on. It's an expensive sport, so it need financial awareness. Yeah.
So looking at the physiques, what does growth hormone do for a physique? What's the difference between a physique that's on just a bunch of steroids and a physique that's on those steroids plus GH?
I will use a GH15 term. It's just 4D. It's like you're kind of 2D when you kind of develop either width or thickness, but eventually it gets like that kind of bubble, you feel heat, roundness, you know, like, yeah, it's a 4D bubble muscle effect, and it's a different mind-blowing game. Yeah.
So, see, I always thought the rounder, fuller look was mainly due to insulin, but you're saying it's really more from GH?
I would say it's from GH. Because I had lived it myself. I could later, when the conversation is done, I'll send you a picture what I look on steroids, you know, minor cycle, hardcore steroids, then slim GH, etc. So for me, I correlated roundness to GH. I'm kind of brologic type, you know, influencer or ambassador, but I'm pretty sure because I've seen it many times.
Use yourself as an example. When you were just using steroids, what was the biggest body weight you were able to get, and then what were you able to get to once you added insulin and growth hormone?
Yes, you see, I compete naturally around 185 with, you know, like Clan T3. It was not fully natural, but it was almost natural. Anavar and stuff like that. Then I compete on steroids, let's say 1 gram of test, Sustanon EQ around 197, and then I start peptide, and I always had like a 240 bulky type off season, but eventually I compete at 218 and 224, and that's with 10 units pharmaceutical GH average a day. So that was pretty expensive. Yeah, you know what? I really think that 2-3 units in the morning for cortisol output, pre-workout for the cardiac output. You don't eat post-workout, you put GH, and then you eat once you kind of calm down and not hypo, but very calm. You eat there, then you can have GH, and then with sleeping. So you see, it's almost like 12 units seems the maximum. I don't know if after 12 units you have an outstanding difference. There's kind of a oversaturation model, you know. Of course, like, you know, some people in very wealthy country, overseas, you know, maybe the percentage advantage worth it in terms of, because they can afford it and don't really care, but I don't know.
Now, is this? I don't know if you were the one that posted about this or not, but I'm sure you have an opinion on it. We've been told for years and years that Chinese, all that crap, that stuff from China is crap. You got to use pharma or else. And I heard that the whole myth, it's a myth that the Chinese stuff is crap, and that myth was put out by the pharmaceutical companies who didn't want people getting much cheaper versions, you know, and not spending money on their companies.
I think that you like China or not, they monopolize the entire world. So that means if you're a loser buying MoneyGram or you're the owner of Pfizer, you're getting the same raw powder. The difference is one is illegal and one is legal, but it's the same product. Maybe I'm delusional, maybe I'm telling fantasy, but I think there's only two companies of production that provide worldwide market. Wow. And with today's information, and you cannot supply that much crap. Not today. People are too out there. They're too. It's like a community, bodybuilding is kind of a hidden scene with some kind of commercial scene, but at the same time, crap won't go far. Yeah.
So do you believe that the generic
exists? It sadly exists, but it won't go far.
So
I think it's actually the United States that struggled with the most with honesty and stuff because of 300 million citizen and, complexity at the custom and the political scenario. But if you're looking outside of US, I think we're pretty. In Canada, it's a free country.
Yes.
Australia is a bit tougher custom-wise, though. Absolutely. Brazil, too, it could be tough.
Going back to regular steroids, do you think most bodybuilders use a lot more than they need, or do you think most people use exactly what they need to see the results they want? In other words, do you think a lot of people are wasting steroids and getting more side effects because they could be cutting their doses back and still seeing the benefits?
I seriously think, I thought about that often. I seriously think that people, they use the same thing, but they're more honest today. We have those narcissistic, crazy, extreme character that go wild and they put it public, their dosage and stuff. Yeah. Sadly, those have a lot of attraction. People that kind of appeal to their craziness, like Boston Lloyd. I mean, he has a big, huge lineup, of people listening to his craziness. I think people are kind of entertainment seeker. Also, a minority of the bodybuilding industry, which I kind of understand too. I mean, I had play and dabble with that in my younger age. Yeah. But I think people use the same. They're just more honest, and we have more colorful people that can be reached and seen at on YouTube. Anyone can go on YouTube, do a video about steroids abuse, Right. And there's no how can I say that, editing or censorship.
Yeah. Well, we love characters, and we have no attention span. We need to be entertained constantly now. So yeah, I get it. That's the appeal. But sort of related to that question is, so if someone's using, a lot of guys are using say they're using 2 grams of test a week, a gram of tren a week, a gram of equipoise. They're taking like 2 or 3 anadrols a day, all kinds of shit. Would they still see the same results, you think, if they took half of what they're taking? Or do these big guys, let's say the 250 to 300 pound guys, do they really need those super high doses to build and to maintain that amount of mass?
I think trend probably the maximum is around 350, 425 a week. More than that, then you're hard on neurotransmitter, digestion, cognition. So you have to come out with GABA, taurine, L-theanine. You need supplementation to kind of replenish the lymphatic immune system and be very intelligent. 2 things gonna stop a bodybuilder: immune system and myostatin. You can play with myostatin blocker like YK11 or ACE031, MyoPro, etc. But immune system, that's a tricky one. And with the cycle you just said, anadrol, tren, EQ, the guy will get sick. So if you get sick, eventually the gym is out, everything's out.
Yeah. How much genetic variation? We hear about people that are great responders, people that are terrible responders. How much genetic variation do you think there really is as far as how people respond to drugs?
By me, because I'm specialized in early development. For me, the genetic, it's often related to 3 years old and younger. So the mental state of mom in the womb, the way you had your delivery birth, did you have breastfeeding long term, you were sleeping with your parents, did your parents hold you, did your parents were understanding your emotion, all those social factor really push telomere and epigenetic and maybe those responder you're talking about. Yeah. So it's really parents' living style. But again, you look at Kai Green, had a rough life, and he made it well anyway. So good parenting style will put maximum sensory process and muscle response, but at the same time, genetic, I will say 10%. 10% genetic.
Because we've all known people, you know, two guys in the gym, they seem like they have similar genetics, and they're natural. You see them both, I've seen it anyway, they'll both go on steroids. And, you know, I was in a gym in California for about 8 years where everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew what everybody was using. So you couldn't lie about it because it was just such a small clique. And you would see some people that would use the same amount and get huge, and other people, they would just get a little bit puffy and zits, start losing their hair, but they wouldn't put much muscle on. So some people definitely get much, much better results from steroids than other people.
But like I said, you have to look at the epigenetic, like how that person eat, live well, think, function, etc. But at the same time, you have to look at the historicity of the child. Did the child eat eggs when he was a baby? Did he brings the food to his mouth? Did he eats organic food, you know, till the blood-brain barrier was mature? Nutritional habits that are imprint are very, very powerful potency of genetic answer. So, you know, if your parents allow you to eat sugar as you wish before 7 years old, the chance that it's there, it's minimal.
Yeah, I mean,
possible, but minimal.
So you're saying I ate a ton of sugar when I was a kid, so did that screw me over as far as gear?
That screw you over in terms of insulin resistance, in terms of, you know, any factor.
That's all we ate in the 70s was sugar, Benoit. That's all we ate.
Yeah, I know.
Sugar.
I know. I'm in that generation too, man. I'm paying for it now.
Ooh.
So.
Okay, another practice. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I know a lot of guys, they believe in front loading their cycles. So they'll take large doses of their injectables right at the beginning of the cycle. And I never quite understood the logic of it, or why they thought that would even be any advantage. Because I figured it's all going to get into your system eventually. You're going to have to wait eventually for it to kick in. So what's the point in, you know, doubling up on your doses for the first couple weeks?
I think it saved the immune response. I think it's better on the inflammatory response because of the natural homeostasis that you have, and help create an equilibrium or somehow till it kind of weakened. But it gives you an entry lapse that is possible. Could be prologic perception, but I think that it's a good tragical way to save the immune system.
Okay.
In terms of side effect.
Speaking of side effects and toxicity, are there any steroids that you believe are so toxic, so dangerous that when you talk to people who you're counseling, you say, don't ever use this?
Well, I don't see why a bodybuilder will use masteron and entate, because it's kind of a MMA specific in terms of aggression. There's a non-ester EQ that's called DHB that usually make the people very sick very often. Wow. I don't see why someone unless it's power lifter or very short time for bodybuilder contest wise, allotestin is like very, like, you know, 5 days, 10 days, very short. Same thing for Superdrol, very, very short. I will not advise anyone to use Tren in an oral form because it's so toxic. And Ment, M-E-N-T, the one that's super strong.
Check drops, what you call it?
Yeah, often make people sick, very often. And when you dabble with those very extreme harsh compound, it kind of kill your career. It's like you can short it by 1 or 2 years. You might blow up and look like a freak, but in 10 years you might be very skinny and ill. Wow. So it's a risky game that I really think someone that do Lentis, GH, peptide, little tiny SARMs, 1 gram steroids with 2-3 anabolics, and few oral like Proviron, Turinabol, VAR, little Win maybe, you know, that one's kind of harsh, but I don't think someone will really hurt himself badly.
But as far as you know, we hear about trend rage, but you're saying, in your belief, Masteron is definitely the one steroid that would make people super hostile and aggressive, if anything would.
It's the one It's masteron and entate. It's not actually the compound. It's because it's a compound that has a long half-life, and that kind of bloodstream, that stable blood, even though it works, it kind of lead to aggression. And like I said, for fighting, jiu-jitsu, go ahead. Yeah. It's needed, but for bodybuilding, no. Because you don't want an aggressive bodybuilder that fight someone and end up in jail while he's prepping for a contest. It's kind of stupid. So yeah, no.
Yeah, I can. I've only used Masteron once or twice for prep, and and you're dieting too, so you're already in a bad mood. So it was like one of the only times I ever felt like chasing someone down that cut me off on the highway and confronting them. Normally I wouldn't. I'd be like but on Masteron, mother. So yeah, stay away, people. If you have anger issues, especially.
It's when we say enhancement, it's really enhancement. I mean, if you're a lover, you'll be a lover by 10. If you're generous, you'll be generous by 10. Yeah. So
Okay. Are there certain steroids that should never be used at the same time together?
Lots of great bodybuilder has blend DECA with TREN, NPP with. For me in my coaching career, I just seen very messed up mood and very dysfunctional behavior on that combo. So that's my no section. It's maybe a personal decision. Worst case scenario, you warn the person and you say, if it goes, it goes. Yeah. With women, you have to be careful. I think you have to gauge and test, try something, and then 3-4 days, you see how that goes. And if it say no, you put in garbage. You kind of really wave in quietly, because with a woman, you cannot go backward.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to think about it, right?
It's irreversible with them.
It's irreversible. Yeah.
I've also heard that you have to respect certain ratios. Like if you're using test and DECA together, I've been told you're supposed to use twice as much test as you do DECA. So if you're doing 500 milligrams of DECA a week, you need to do a gram of test, or else I don't know. I can't remember why. What was the problem with it? But is there any truth to that?
I never been a fan of DECA, just because it kind of bloat people even if they eat clean. So in that case of a skinny guy, then I will say yes. In case of someone that kind of want a bare looks and he doesn't care about carrying water, some people, they actually love it. So, well, why not? But my favorite is EQ if the person is calm. If the person is cool, chill out, very soothing, very organized, aligned, then EQ is the best. The person is too nervous, then that's kind of hard to get an anabolic ratio.
So if you're using equipoise, would you have to keep it? Would you want to keep it the same amount as your test? Would you want it higher or lower?
Yeah, I do 2-1 ratio. To higher androgenic than anabolic. Okay. I've seen high anabolic works on people that do performance training, like CrossFit and like stuff like that. So usually high anabolic will do better on them. Let's say CrossFit Championship, Reebok, CrossFit, blah, blah, blah. You go with EQ, EPO, make sure lower red blood cells, then that could work.
Okay. How much of the gear on the black market, let's say the U.S., because I'm sure Canada is way better, but most of my viewers are here in America. How much of our gear down here do you think our black market is either underdosed badly or completely inert? There's not even a steroid in it.
I think now with the U.S. state, that's my perception, because of dark web and because of seashore, Colombia, Panama, place that they sell steroids that are legal, and they can import whatever they want. I think a lot of U.S. citizen actually is buying outside of U.S. because of that mistrust and stuff.
Right.
But I'm not in the underground scene, but from what I see from a Canadian angle site, I see the dark web and foreigner ship in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that people, because, you know, it's since 9/11, it's become very, very hard to get things through customs safely. You know, you're always...
it's hard to get stuff safely into custom, but, you know, it's client that buy 2-3 bottle. I don't think it really matter. You know, I don't think they will do much. I don't know. It depends which state. You have flexible state in U.S. Florida, pretty outgoing. California, pretty going. New York is on and off, whatever. But those 3 states, they kind of supply the entire... That's how I see it. I don't know if it's true.
No,
you know, kind of...
Those have always been the hotbeds of steroid use in America have always been Florida, California, and New York, New Jersey. Those 2 areas.
You need flexible state. You need, you know, Toronto is a very flexible state for us. And
Toronto sounds great.
Toronto sounds great. It is great.
I got to say, what a clean city that is. I was like walking around. There's like no trash. It's crazy. What was it? Anti-estrogens we touched on. Do you believe most people need to run anti-estrogens with their cycle, or is it just people who are overly sensitive to estrogen?
Well, we live in a world that plastic are less biodegradable, so it had up and there's a lot of mechanical processed foods, sadly. So unless you're very wealthy and can eat in the organic biological framework,
Whole foods,
yeah, whole food. Yeah, yams is under the earth, is protected from XYZ.
No, I meant the store,
because
store whole
water
foods.
too. You know, like all estrogen drugs are not biodegradable, but testosterone is. So we're gonna live in a world that be more and more estrogenic somehow, indirectly, genetic-wise, because I think that's why there's more gender-confused people. You know, theory, whatever. But I think there's a correlation between cortisol, thyroid, estrogen, insulin resistance. That's kind of all work together. And if you're healthy, you will not have prolactin problem or estradiol problem. You can lower it a bit as a bodybuilder to keep in cognition. That's good, but never too low. Aromacin is an LT anti-estrogen. Nolvadex is okay, but you want to do Nolvadex for 4 or 5 years in a row. Steroids is safe, but anti-estrogen is not. Anti-estrogen leads to insulin resistance, so you kind of loop in the... What I find is if you're a bodybuilder that's very serious, while you're going to go on and off and on and off, and then you can work with zinc and vitamin D, but are you going to be able to replenish your TSH, HPTA normally forever? I really doubt so. So might as well get gyno surgery right away. So at least you will spend less on anti-estrogen. Because usually people that use it all the time, it's not because they use it. They're just like, oh, I have gyno, I have to trim it down. They don't stop, blah, blah. I have it only on one side. If you have only on one side, it's organ response. If you have both ways, then you know your estrogen is very high. So if it's only one side, it could be pancreas, could be liver, could be, you know, it's only one item. So you have to work on your health. It's possible. But once you have gyno, it's never going to come back. Those people that say, oh, it disappear and all those myths, no, it doesn't.
No.
You have to do surgery. You have to do surgery.
So, I mean,
once they'll get to 5% body fat, they will see they have gyno.
Right. But I mean, it's a lot of guys think you have to take an anti-estrogen with your cycle. It's just like a standard part of your cycle. I don't believe that. I don't know why everyone seems convinced you have to. Do you believe everyone needs it?
The problem is because the generation change, and if we look the world that Arnold Schwarzenegger lived in the 60s, 70s, and now someone and it's 219, the pollution, we don't see the sky that much anymore. We live in a very different industrial state of water, food, toxicity. So I think young kids abuse of it, but we do live in a world where estrogen has to, don't eat in plastic, be careful. You need kind of a awareness of the environmental that's around you. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask it again. Do you think, does everyone need, when you're counseling people on this is the cycle I would suggest.
Yes.
Do you have everyone on anti-estrogens with cycles or no?
Usually I look at the cheekbones. I will look at the lower back fat.
Yeah.
I will look at the waistline in terms of cortisol and stomach and this and that. Yeah. And I usually will go with, if someone will start with me as BLP as a coach, they would have 9 weeks, no inflammatory food at all. So no cheat, no junk, no bad sugar, nothing for 9 weeks to bring back to histamine as a baseline. So that will usually take out a lot of useless water retention, and then we can look it up at the estrogen level. But of course, if the person wants to have a lean below 8% body fat and look tight, it could be hard without anti-estrogen. I don't think you need that much in off season. I think people abuse of it. I think aromacin, raloxifene are good, safe alternative. HCG tend to aromatize. HMG is better, but more expensive.
Because I did many cycles without an anti-estrogen, and I never got gyno. And the only time I ever used anti-estrogens was on a couple of contest preps because I found I couldn't get my glutes really dry and crispy and striated. I couldn't get the hamstrings, the legs in general. I couldn't get them as dry and really crispy striated as I wanted without using a Arimidex or something.
Yeah, no choice. Yeah, letrozole. Yeah.
Letrozole. What was I say? Orals. A lot of people like orals because they're afraid of needles. If someone came to you and said, I don't like needles, I just want to do orals only, would you try to convince them otherwise?
I think SARMs will be okay for 4 or 5 weeks. That's it, twice a year. I will go LGD, YK, MK. You could do Primotab. It's kind of rare, but it's a very good oral, very soft, very fast repercussion. Turinabol too. Has very good quality of answer, but very fast adaptation. Anavar is always a good one with many orals and supplement. I'll use creatine with it, obviously. Yeah. Depends who and what, but YK, LGD, MK, Proviron, Turinabol, Primotab. That'll be my cycle.
Like Primabol, and it comes in a tablet form.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw that once, many years ago. I haven't seen it since. But, I'm here in the wild west, so we don't have all that great stuff anymore. So that is all the questions I had. Did you have some things that you wanted to...
Good question, Chuck Mason.
Let's hear it.
Typical question I answer. So, question for you I'm going to ask. The guy's doing a surgery for his nose.
Okay.
And he's on TB 500, PCP 157, and GH. Should he stop? Should he keep going? Or if he stopped, when he should do those components after his surgery? When? What's your answer?
My answer? Well, I know for any kind of surgery, you don't want to be on anything that's going to thin the blood because they want to make sure your blood can clot. I think they tell you 2 weeks, like no Advil or stuff like that. So I would assume you want to be off everything. You want it cleared from your system for at least 2 weeks prior to the surgery. That would be my answer.
Yes. And after, once it's done?
Well, let's see. Well, you're not going to be training for a little while anyway, so why waste the drugs? That's my meathead way of looking at it. I would wait probably about 2 or 3 weeks after the surgery to start using anything.
That's a good answer. I like it.
Okay.
What was the exact answer, to be very exact, is when you have a surgery, you want natural recovery on anti-inflammatory process to do his first loop. Usually it's 4 or 5 days, and then you can use any compound you want. What it means by that is drug will not beat nature.
Yeah. Well, this should go apply for any surgery, because you're talking about a nose,
yes.
But I'm sure a lot of people out there are probably having like knee surgery or shoulder surgery. Unless you're trying to be a movie star, you probably wouldn't be getting your nose done.
Yeah.
Next question.
Next question is the people that collide correlation of carpal tunnel syndrome response symptoms with quality of GH.
Yeah.
Is it true or not?
I don't know if it's true, but like a good friend of mine, he gets very excited because he's always trying to find good GH. It's like a gamble. It's like a crapshoot down here. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But if he starts feeling carpal tunnel, he's so happy. He's like, my hands and my wrists are killing me. This stuff must be great. So is he completely wrong?
He's not completely wrong, but I will say it's wrong.
Oh.
It's usually often related to shoulder mobility, biochemistry that could make the jaw clench, asymmetry of the palate or the frenulum, the tongue tie below the tongue, and it's often just the person need to work mobility of shoulder, rotational. So the person has to do functional power building kind of training.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but if they had no carpal tunnel symptoms and then they get this GH that they're not sure if it's good, real or not, and within a week they have carpal tunnel syndrome symptoms, would that indicate that it is genuine growth hormone?
No. I would say that good quality GH hormones with the quality of dreams. If you tend to dreams very reality-based, like you're watching TV, you feel people, you have emotion, it's like almost like a watch, that's a perfect GH. So it will not bring nightmare, it will bring beautiful dreams that are very surreal.
So the killer clown's chasing me. No, that's probably
No, that's usually sugar or ain't good.
Okay. These are great questions, Benoit. What's the next one?
The next one is my best advice for T3 is to use at 10.5 microgram because that's a way to create self-regulation. So especially someone that's doing like big cycle, you were saying, when you're doing big cycle, you kind of expect a TSH is going lower. So 12.5 is very low, it's minimal, and that makes T3 function normal.
Is this for
anyway, you will know if the guy sleep like, I slept 13, 14, 15 hours, that's kind of a sign that's like, okay, you have to a little bit of T3.
So,
but only with GH.
Are people using T3 like in the off season? As far as I've known, I've always considered it strictly for prep.
It depends how much GH and how much drugs you're taking. But in high cycle, in high GHUs, you kind of almost have no choice, but you keep it low.
Now you have no choice because your own metabolism gets lowered?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Sure. I'm a moron because I always assumed if GH makes you leaner, I always assumed it had some sort of effect on your metabolic rate where it
No. There's good. I'm going to send you links there. If you Google the subject, there's genius in those. They explain why. Very careful.
My bro logic is striking out left and right today. Bro science. Okay.
Yes, bro science. It's a bro science, but it has some meaning. It has some experience, and it has some. I will not deny the medical system. I think you kind of need both.
Yeah. You
need both polarities to complete. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
No, I think we did pretty good, man.
Well, I mean, we got to have you on again. This is because everyone's I guarantee everyone's gonna like, why didn't you ask him this? Why didn't you ask him that? Don't worry.
Well, I'm open anytime you want. I'm here. We can dabble all the questions they want.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, one closing thought: is Toronto the happening place? Should everybody move to Toronto? Because Antoine moved from Montreal to Toronto.
He's in Hamilton. He's about 1 hour, I think, from down. It's a more quiet place than Toronto. Toronto feels a bit like New York in the 95-ish, Manhattan, New York, that kind of vibe. Very cool. Very cool city.
I did figure out one trick, though, because there's around that area of the convention center in Toronto where the show is and everything, there's some homeless people who will come up to you asking for money. And the first thing they ask is, do you speak English? And like a moron, I kept saying yes. I'm like, well, if I say no, they'll leave me alone. So I'll just say, no English. Yeah. That's just my advice for anybody traveling to Toronto. You don't speak English if they ask. That's all. Cool, man. Benoit, that's been a great second episode.
Honor. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's do this again sometime for sure.
Yes, absolutely, man.
Is there anything you want, a website, anything you want people to follow you at? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook on my real name, Benoit LaPierre, and I'm on Instagram again under my name. The Instagram is more academic oriented, and now I'm working on a big CPA show. We have the FitLog Classic presented by Khaled. Yeah, he's prepping for the Arnold Classic at 5 weeks out. Yeah. He's doing that big project with us, but now he's focusing on his contest. So I say, okay, go do the Arnold Classic. We'll see you after. He's working hard. He's built a beautiful website. It's an expo. We kind of we want to mimic an amateur version of the Arnold Classic in Quebec City.
Wow.
It's a big project, big money. There's attraction. There's about 600 people say they're interested on Facebook. So there's an event. And it's only been out 30 hours, so I think there'll be at least 2,000 people.
Is there a different Facebook page for the event?
Yeah, it's called Shop Santé. That's their our sponsor. Shop Santé Expo.
How do you spell that? Because that sounds like French.
Yeah, it's very French. Shop like shopping. Santé is like health in French, and it's SANTE.
Okay.
We might have a couple of guys from Brooklyn coming down in College Station to do kinesthetic stuff, that kind of very avant-garde sport. And we have, I think it's 2 female wrestlers from Buffalo, New York that they're coming. Yeah, we have MMA exhibit, arm wrestling tournament, pro wrestling, strongman. XPNs is the sponsor, powerlifting and bodybuilding.
How far is Quebec City from Montreal?
About 3.5 hours.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a good ride. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Well, good luck. Best of luck with that. When is that happening?
Say what?
I said, when is that happening? When is this expo?
27, 28 April.
Oh, okay.
It's in 13 weeks from now. So.
Okay. Well, let's have you on again before that, and we can give people updates on how that's coming along. Yeah.
Antoine Vaillant is the guest poser, and Redcon 1 will be there. Aaron Singerman Company has 2 booths there.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw Antoine's on the cover of the new Muscular Development.
Yeah, I was very happy, man.
The arm blaster with biceps popping out like melons.
It's a very good picture, and it's really him too. Yeah. It's very on. It has this unique vibration to it. It's him.
Did you have the actual magazine?
I didn't see the actual magazine.
You go inside and the training shots. It's the facial expressions there, and he's like it's awesome.
Yeah,
his personality really comes through. You know this is not your average boring guy faking a workout. It's Antoine. Cool.
All
right,
thank you, man.
Thanks for coming on again. All the great information appreciated by me and all my fellow meatheads out there. We love to hear some actual science and some good advice from someone like yourself who's taken years and years to really gather all the information, so we're not just shooting in the dark like we usually do, guessing. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for watching the Ronline Report, and we'll see you again next time.